Hello, everyone. Welcome to Somebody's Got to Do It. This is Kama Mahako, and with me in studio, I have Dr. Ken Irish-Bramble. So he's going to be sharing with us. He's an educator, he's a professor, and he wears other hats as well. He's going to be sharing with us about the different roles that he plays. And as usual, we like to get into the nitty-gritty of the jobs. We like when our viewers learn about the hands-on, the everyday things that happen in these jobs. So Dr. Irish-Bramble, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and we are really happy to have you. All right, so start by telling us, what is your job? What do you do on a daily basis?
My job is quite fluid.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose the core of it, so I'll start with the first hat, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a full-time faculty member here at Medgar Evers College of the City University of New York.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so as a faculty member, obviously, I teach college-level courses and advise students. But I also wear a couple of other hats that
Yes.
go along with that. One of them being that I am the coordinator for political science on this campus, which means I um, take responsibility basically for all political science instruction. Not necessarily that I'm teaching all of the classes, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm quite influential in terms of who gets hired to teach political science, what courses run. I direct the development of new courses, um, so things of that nature.
Okay.
Um, I also have a couple of other department titles which I hold. I
Mm-hmm.
won't go through all of them, or we'll be here
Okay.
for a while. But
Okay.
um, one is that I'm also the chair of the academic standards department. What that means is that I am the person that students come to when they want to, or faculty actually, when they want to challenge a grade, whether they want to challenge whether or not credits are being accepted for them to graduate. Any grievances that are centered around an academic issue,
Mm-hmm.
including a faculty member accuses a student of cheating or plagiarism or something.
Okay.
Um, so a lot of that stuff passes through my hands. And I guess the third hat that falls under the professor title is that I'll talk about is that I'm also a member of the assessment committee, and so the department's assessment committee. And so in that capacity, we do evaluations of faculty syllabi, for example, on a semester by semester basis, to make sure that the syllabi fit within um, the parameters that have been set forth by the university, and that people are complying with certain basic policies, and that nothing is outlandish and outside of
You have
what is
some really heavy tasks on your hands.
yeah, that's why I said my days are quite
And
fluid.
tell us about the Caribbean Research Center.
Okay, well, I took over the Caribbean Research Center, I guess about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I am the director there. I have a small staff of um, three full-time employees,
Mm-hmm.
some student interns, and research assistants, and so on. The Caribbean Research Center focuses really on studying not just the Caribbean region, but also the Caribbean American experience, the migrant experience, the
Mm-hmm.
challenges faced by Caribbean Americans here um, in the United States, and predominantly here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we have a variety of programs, I guess, that fall under our umbrella. We have a speaker series, so we invite speakers from around the region and some local speakers here as well. We support research by students not just here from Medgar Evers College, but really across globally, actually. Most of them are from the United States, people who are studying the English-speaking Caribbean tend to, at some point in time or another, come across us. Um, we have a small special collection and research library here that we run that is open to the public and accessible to researchers who want to do work or find out more about the Caribbean. Which reminds me, I need some copies of your books.
And I'm just thinking, I definitely want to visit the Caribbean Research Center.
Yes, you should come up.
Yes.
All right, so
What
we'll work on that after the show.
absolutely? What made you decide to go what made you choose politics as the field that you want to teach?
That's interesting. Well, I think in the survey you sent, like one of the questions was this what I always wanted to do?
Yes, I was getting to that.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to be a diplomat, and that started at a pretty young age. I got involved in youth activism and youth leadership in my early teens, both on the national level and then later on the regional level. And so I fell in love with the idea of traveling around and meeting with like-minded leaders and so on, and trying to talk about solutions and develop solutions for a variety of problems. And I thought, man, this has to be the coolest thing to do for a living.
You get to rub shoulders
You
first
get
and
to rub
foremost.
shoulders,
Yeah,
somebody
with
buys you
the movers and
you get to
shakers.
fly, stay in hotels, and and get paid for it. And I was like, yeah,
Yes,
man, that's my thing.
diplomatic immunity.
Absolutely. Well, if you get high enough up the ladder. So yeah, that's actually what I wanted um, to do originally. And then when I traveled abroad, of course, to the United States to study, um, my original goal was I was going to um, study political science and international law. Again, thinking that this is where I'm going. So why political science? Because that's how decisions get made. If you're trying to change the world, then
Yes,
at some point in time you have to engage in
in
politics on one
politics.
level or another, right? Even people who say they're anti-politics, I'm like, no, you're not.
No, I've
You
always
just
been
represent a different perspective on things.
right. Yes.
So yeah, so that's why I got an interest in political science, and as I progressed through my education, my interest sort of morphed a little bit in terms of what aspects of politics I thought were interesting. Um, and in terms of teaching, I actually didn't start off teaching political science. I actually started off teaching outside of my discipline. Uh, so you've introduced me as an educator. I've been in a classroom in one way, shape, or form since I was, I guess, about 18 years old, right?
Yeah.
Um, in terms of college instruction, I actually started off teaching history, teaching Caribbean history.
Sorry,
Um,
Doc. Your voice fluctuates.
oh,
But
no problem, no problem.
yeah, you said you started teaching
Caribbean history, actually.
Caribbean history. Okay.
Yeah. So some 25 years ago,
Yeah.
I was offered an opportunity to teach Caribbean history here at Medgar Evers College, and I also taught some urban studies at Queens College. So that's where I started off. And then after, I completed some of my graduate degrees, um, I switched over and sort of focused on my discipline in terms of
Okay.
teaching politics.
I am very interested in gender studies.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, do you find more of a particular gender coming into political science, political studies?
No, and the demographics are changing. So at one point in time, it might have been a male dominated. I guess when I was studying, there were more men than women studying
Mhm.
um, than political science. I don't have the data to back that up. I'm just
Yeah.
basing that on my recollection of um, who was in the room. But larger trends have changed, and
Yes.
so now, in fact, there are just more women. Period.
In
Uh,
college. Yeah.
in higher education, yeah. And even in terms of political science, you find more women are coming into
Yeah.
uh, are coming into to that field, I guess, with a new understanding of how they can um,
Contribute.
contribute to the conversation,
Yes.
but also
Make an
learn how
impact.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, learn how the various systems work, um, and utilize them to their advantage. So.
You mentioned earlier that, when you were growing up, you wanted to represent not just your country but the region.
Hmm.
Tell us about. I know you're a man of the Caribbean.
Mm.
I want you to tell us about that background. Where in the Caribbean are you from? What was it
Okay.
like there, and how did you come to migrate to the United States?
Well, in terms of my personal Caribbean roots, I was born in Saint Martin, on the
Mhm.
French side of Saint Martin. Both of my parents are from Montserrat. Um, I spent most of my life um, in Montserrat. Was in Jamaica for a very short period of time when I was very young. My father was at UWI at the time.
Mhm.
Um, Traveled around the region a bit, as I said, between the youth activism and other things. My mother was also what was at the time called the regional affairs officer, uh,
Mhm.
which meant that she was one of the representatives who went to all of these OECS and CARICOM and
Yeah.
so on meetings.
So you're
Uh,
used to seeing your parents in academia and in representation as well.
oh yeah, absolutely. I sometimes, sometimes my students say to me, oh, I have a young child with me. Can I bring the young child? And I go, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Um, and they sometimes seem surprised by it. And I tell them, listen, like I
That's
was
how you
once,
grew up,
I
right?
was once that kid.
Yeah.
you know, I was the little child playing around outside in the field outside of the class. Well, that's what
Mm,
I thought. And some of my earliest memories are actually
right.
um, either on campuses or in both of these experiences or traveling
Do you still have
members around the region.
strong family ties with the Caribbean, or everybody's overseas, or what?
Not as much, everybody's migrated for the most part. My mom still maintains a home
Mm,
in Montserrat and travels back and forth. And I have a couple of cousins and so on who are still
okay.
in the region. But for the most part, no, we've migrated out.
I noticed your locks. Are you a Rastafarian?
Well, I used to consider myself that. I don't know what I consider myself anymore. Um,
Are you a very
so
spiritual
I've,
person
I've evolved beyond the label.
beyond religion?
Let's put it that way. Yes, I'm not a big
Okay, but
fan
you
of
still love the
religion.
locks.
Yeah, whatever I have left, the one or two.
Yeah, we sound like we're in the same category, you and I. And you want to give our viewers an idea of how old you are, or how
Um,
old you feel like being?
I'm of legal age.
You're old enough and young enough, right? Old
Yeah.
enough and young enough, right? For whatever
Um,
whatever it is, you're old enough and young
I,
enough.
I'm pushing 50 if
Okay.
I must admit that. Um, so
Okay. What's your day to day? I know you told us generally what's the caps that you wear. What's your day to day 8 hour? Is it an 8 hour day you have? A 12 hour day?
um I don't know, like it's flexible, as I said. One of the things that I actually like about you talked about getting to understand the nitty-gritty of different professions. One of the things that I love about um, my profession and where I am in my career is that I have a great deal of flexibility. All right.
Mhm.
So I don't have a 9 to 5. I don't have a report time and a leave time,
Yeah.
um, and so on. So my schedule can be can vary quite a bit
Yeah.
from week to week. Since I've taken over the center, I tend to be on campus 4 to 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and some of those days can be quite long.
Mm-hmm.
And not just because of the job, but also because of personal life issues and so on.
Okay.
My children, for example, attend school um, 2 blocks away from where I am. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
well, two of my children, I should correct myself in saying. So two of my children attend school here, so I tend to bring them down in the morning. Right.
Right.
Um, Now that means that I'm here very early in the morning because they start school at 8 o'clock, sometimes 7:30 when my daughter's doing swimming and so on. Um, and most of my classes that I teach, well, these days I only teach one class per semester.
Mm.
Um, and but those classes tend to be in the evenings, right? So there are days when I'm here at 7:30 in the morning and I'm leaving at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at
Oh, wow.
night. Yeah, it's not
That's
as it sounds. And then there are days like today when I'm here, and as soon as I'm done talking with you, I'm gone.
okay. Yeah. What's the difference between an adjunct professor, an associate professor, a
Okay.
professor? What's all
Oh,
that?
okay. That's actually a good question because most people
Yeah, I've always
don't
wondered what's the
appreciate what the
difference.
difference is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start with the adjunct versus full time. An
Mm-hmm.
adjunct professor is a part-time professor who does not have a permanent affiliation with the college. So
So
you're
kind of like
part-time and temporary.
freelance.
Yes, actually.
Okay.
For many of them, it is a very much a freelance type lifestyle. So
So they don't have tenure.
they do not have tenure. They do
Mm.
not have the level of stability or permanence that full-time
Okay.
faculty have.
Okay.
Um, and I was an adjunct for a long time, right? I had a full-time job in the day, and then in the evenings, I taught college classes. Some people make a whole life out of it. So I know I have colleagues, for example, who teach at 2 or 3 different
I was
universities.
about to ask that, right? So the
Yeah,
adjunct can like it's pretty much freelance. You
it
can
is
go
freelance.
right
You're a freelance academic or a freelance
different
instructor.
colleges.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Um,
the associate professor.
well, then you have the full-time
Mm.
faculty line. Now, the associate and assistant and all that stuff is a matter of rank. Um,
Oh.
so, and up here in particular in the United States, people are very fond of calling everyone who teaches a college class professor. But
Yes.
in reality, that is not truly the case.
Mm.
Professor is actually a title, not just a job description or a job title.
Yeah.
Um, and it is a rank, right? So there is a hierarchy. Um, and so the hierarchy starts at the bottom as a lecturer. Right. So a lecturer teaches a college class, but doesn't necessarily have the same credentials as those above them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
After a lecturer, then you move up to being an assistant professor. After an assistant professor, you become an associate. After associate, become a full professor.
At
Right.
what point do you get tenure?
You can have tenure at actually any of those ranks.
Okay. What qualifies you
Usually,
to get tenure?
so usually your tenure is based on a 7-year track record. So once you're
Okay.
hired as a full-time faculty member, so you become a part of the faculty of the
Mm-hmm.
university, right? In essence, you're part of the university.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most often you have a 7-year, call it probationary period, if you will, where you, at the end of which you will be assessed in terms of your performance in the classroom, your academic track records, publications,
Mm-hmm.
presentations, speeches, whatever. Um, in the case of our university, there are actually 9 categories in which we are assessed, which include our contribution to the larger community and our
Mm-hmm.
contribution to the college community, creative works, and so
Okay.
on. So over that first 7-year period, you work very hard on putting together a portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
which then has to be evaluated by your peers and superiors, the university's administration itself. Um, and then if you are deemed successful, if your package is considered to have been a good one, then you're given this thing called tenure, which is your permanent connection to the university.
Okay. And do you have to have a certain number of publications
The
in
the bar the bar
journals or books
the
or
bar
what?
is a little fluid, but yes, and it can vary, right? So most people try to get, I guess the easiest, and then maybe not the easiest, the most common is, you get yourself 5 publications in
Okay.
referee
And
journals,
it's in journals or
right,
books.
right, or books, and so on. And so, as I said, people can do a combination of things. So you can,
Okay.
there's no hard and fast rule that it must be 5 of this and 3 of that or
Okay.
whatever.
Okay. So,
So
so if
someone,
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Doc.
no, I was just giving you an example. Someone might have 2 or 3 books, but only 4 um,
Journal.
journal articles, whereas
Yeah.
somebody else may have 10 journal articles and no book. Um, and both can be successful.
It's the case where you've done this 7 years. It's the case where you make an application or you just submit your portfolio, or do you have to stand in front of a committee and defend it the way you do like for a PhD?
All of the above. So
Oh,
at the end of the 7-year period, you are expected to put in your application. If you don't put in your application, the university will call you up anyway, because your 7-year probation time is up and
mm-hmm.
you are expected to be ready to present. The portfolio, presenting the portfolio is done both physically. Uh, Sadly, a lot of universities still use the old school physical presentation of a portfolio, meaning,
Mm-hmm.
literally binders of, here's evidence that I've worked with students, here's evidence I've done this, and so on. And you physically hand over multiple copies of that to um, 3 different levels of committees. So you hand it over to your department evaluates it, determines whether or not they think it's up to standard. It then goes on to the next level and so on.
I've heard rumors
Go ahead.
over the years. I mean, and you can tell me from your experience if you have seen this happen or heard of this happen, right? So, particularly where you have professors who are very controversial,
Mhm.
I've heard that the university, when they're almost ready to get tenure, they would sack them. Are they able to do that? Have you heard of
Um,
it being done, to
so
professors who are very controversial?
um, it can be done. I'll say that it can be done, and there certainly are instances where, being controversial, it depends on how your controversial is playing out. Okay.
Hmm.
um, Being controversial can be a positive thing, in the
Hmm.
sense that if it's drawing attention to the university, if you're controversial and getting a lot of support out there. This is academia. Controversial is something we can live with,
It
right?
makes you wonder sometimes, though.
Of course,
And the
all things should.
censorship that goes on now in academia, it really makes you wonder.
Um, yes, and I think it depends. And so let's get to the second side of it. You can be controversial to the point where you are simply a
Liability.
distraction and a
A
liability,
liability. Yeah.
right? And and there are other factors that come into play, right? You can be controversial just in terms of you have a radical idea and some radical stuff. You can be controversial in the sense that you're ticking off this particular group of people who are very influential and very powerful, and there are repercussions. Um, so is it possible for you to get, um, you know,
Sacked.
sacked, as you put it, um,
Sabotaged.
just for being too controversial? Yes, of course. The smart move, if you're a smart academic, is you hold back on some of that controversy until after you have tenure,
Until
right? And then it's harder for them to sack you.
can it be retracted? Once you get it, you get it. You can't. They can't take it
Right.
back.
No, it can't be retracted, right? So, so if this person is truly, radical and truly smart, then you stay radical enough to be relevant, to be cutting edge, to be a draw, to be a positive. And if there's a little more radical in you,
Yeah.
once you get past tenure, then that's when you
Yeah. I
let
used
that
to
light
hear
go.
Dr. Ben joke about that. Dr. Ben.
Well, it's always been the case, and it's human nature. I think it's true
Yeah.
in any field. Um, so you play your cards wisely,
The caricature that we have in our minds when we think of the college professor,
right?
and this has been, whether it's in comics, in on TV, movies, whatever, is this stuffy fellow, who
Right.
he's at the top of academia, and it has all gotten to his head. He's no longer able to relate even to the average man. He is, as I mentioned earlier, you're not the person to give jokes, which I know
Right.
you were joking.
Right.
But do you find that, is this true? Are most professors like that, unrelated,
No.
distant, locked
No.
in their academia?
No. 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 Not at all. I've in my experience, I've encountered people across the spectrum. Um, and this is both when I was a student and now when I'm talking about my colleagues. So do you have the stiff professor who has spent his entire life you know locked in a book or a library?
Yeah.
Sure. And do you find your professor who has studied this thing and that's just his entire universe, that's all
That's all he
cares
knows,
about, that's
cares
all he's ever
about.
going to talk about? Is
Yeah.
like, you invite him to the party and he whipping out his
That's
thesis to show you, like, 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 does that guy exist? Yes,
yes,
those
yes, he
guys
does.
do exist. On the other hand, and I don't know where I fall in the spectrum. Hopefully somewhere, hopefully somewhere in the respectable middle, I guess. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've known professors who taught subjects that where you would expect them to be extremely stiff, and after class is over, the person grabs a saxophone, as in some jazz club or
Yes.
playing in some band someplace,
Yeah,
or
that's my
um,
kind of professor.
you
Yeah.
know who is inviting the class out for drinks afterwards, like,
Yeah.
you have the full spectrum.
Is your door, I mean, part of your job, as you described it, your door is open to students, but are you, when the day is done, are you still accessible to your students, to your
Yes, maybe too
mentees?
much,
Do you
maybe
have
too much so.
mentees?
I do. I do. Strangely enough, I don't know why these people would choose to come and follow me, but um, um, I have quite a few students who I stay in touch with. Uh,
Mm,
not only while they were students, but after they've graduated, who've gone and done all kinds of interesting stuff um, in their careers and so on,
yes.
and who keep me in the loop. I have former students who I now consider friends, and I've been doing it long enough that I have former students who are sitting across the hall from me.
Oh my goodness.
In
Lord.
fact, I have
But
one.
that's good though,
I
right?
have
That's
one
good.
just moving in now, actually.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, I try to be accessible. I don't give out my personal number
Mm-hmm.
necessarily to most students, but this is the information age. Um, and if you shoot me an email at 9 o'clock in the night, 10 o'clock in the night, and I'm you know
And you're up.
and
Yeah.
I'm up, and there it is on my phone.
Yeah.
I'll answer if don't have an appointment and you're walking by and you say you want to talk, come on in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, try
You,
to be as open as possible.
you live in one of the most, if not the most, cosmopolitan cities.
Hmm.
Does Medgar Evers College reflect that? And what kind of challenges does that cause for the professor?
An interesting question. So Medgar Evers is part of the City University of New York, which boasts that it is the largest and probably the truest urban university in the world.
Mm.
Um,
You said in New York, in the
in
world,
the world, in
in
the
the
world.
world. Okay.
Um, yeah. See, the CUNY has, I think we're up to 23 or something, 23 or 24 different colleges. Some of our colleges are quite large, 18,000 students, 20 something thousand
Mm.
students. Medgar is
Yeah.
a smaller institution within that network. Um,
Does it reflect New York in terms of the diversity?
Not Medgar, maybe not. So Medgar is predominantly minority, as they would say. So we have a large Caribbean American population. We have a large African population, large African American population.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know that we are the most diverse of campuses.
Mm-hmm.
So ours is largely Black and Hispanic,
Okay.
with a sprinkling of others. But if you look at the larger universities, so the City University of New York, then
Yeah.
yes, just about every ethnicity, every
Okay.
walk of life is
Which do
represented.
you think is better? For example, the HBCUs where you have black students within the most of the persons who they interact with are students who look like them, come from similar situations, or let's say maybe the Ivies where you might have a very small minority of black students.
Depends on who you are and what you want out of your college experience, right? So I the popular thing is to in these days would be for me to say like an HBCU is
Mm-hmm.
the best option. And there certainly are lots of advantages, and we can talk for an hour about the advantages of
Mm-hmm.
um, being in an institution where there are others like you who have share your experience, who have similar goals, where
Mm-hmm.
there is a mission to the institution,
Yeah.
where the faculty who come there, the faculty who chooses to go and work at Howard, Morehouse, one of these places, going there with a particular mindset to help
Mm-hmm.
advance you. There certainly are huge advantages to the networking, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you see so many powerful organizations and movements coming out of HBCUs,
Okay.
and these the sororities and the fraternities, the Greek houses, they do exceptionally well. Um, and so none of those things can be denied. Like that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Um, at the same time, do I I also see value, and again, it depends on who you are. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you are, and where you want to go. I personally, so I'm a graduate of NYU, and I thought NYU was a wonderful experience, right?
Yes.
Extremely diverse population. Um, Most of my faculty didn't look like me. When I went into the PhD program, I was the only Black person in there, and
Mm.
I still suspect I might actually be their first Black graduate. I've never actually verified it, but
Yeah.
one of these days when I have the time and energy, I'll go
There are
research.
definitely benefits, but I would say if you are a minority and you definitely go into an Ivy or any other um, college where it's majority white, you really or you as a parent or you as a student have to ensure that the student is really grounded
Yes.
in himself or herself, because
Right.
they can easily become disoriented.
Oh, absolutely. And that's
Yeah,
why I said it really depends on who you are, who is the
who the
student,
person is, right?
what the student wants, and where they're trying to go. Like in other words, what one of the key questions is what network are you trying to develop coming out?
Yeah.
All right.
And I guess the profession you're going into,
Mhm.
all of that. All right, Doc. So we're at the time where we're going to have our slideshow,
Oh, this sounds exciting. Let's see what you have up there.
and I'm just gonna flick the pics, maybe like 3 seconds each, and
But that won't give me any time to comment. I thought you wanted me to comment. I was
all
about to
right.
get
You tell me how long you
into
want.
my narrator mode, you
How
know.
long you want me to keep them for?
It's all right. We'll work it out as we go. Let's see how it
As
goes.
long as you want me to keep
All
them.
right.
Can you see the first one?
Yes, so this is actually at graduation this year. So this is graduation at Coney Island.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, interestingly, I think the student took this, and this is me saying, hey, what's up to the student as we're getting ready to go in.
Doc, could you sit forward a little, please? I'm
Sure.
concerned about the volume of your voice.
Yeah, are you hearing me? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay. And who's this guy?
Oh Lord, that's just I don't know how did that get in there. That's just my memoji.
Okay, so this is your avatar?
Was that really sent to you, or did you pull that down from screen?
Yes, you did.
Oh, I am so sorry. As I said,
Oh no, it's a
I was
pleasure.
obviously on the run when I was doing that. Okay.
Okay, what's happening here?
Also, graduation to students. This is I think right after the ceremony. So these are two of our graduating seniors, and you can tell by my face I was caught in the middle of talking smack when the person took the picture. So all right.
They look tiny.
I know, but they're not. They're giants.
All right.
Um, all right, this is an event that we co-sponsored. It's called the One Caribbean event, and
Mm-hmm.
it's um, part of an initiative to increase cooperation between the various Caribbean diasporas that are represented here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So that was me doing my little presentation during that
Okay.
conversation.
How is that going? Do you find that you're getting a lot of response from the Caribbean community there?
Yes, but it's an ongoing struggle. But yes, I do think we are making progress. I actually think in many ways you find um, less divisiveness here than you do necessarily back home, right? People when once you come up here, you tend to be a little less insular in your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Mm-hmm.
you realize we have by far more in common
Yeah.
than we do.
Ultimately, what do you want to mobilize the diaspora to do?
Actually, that's a very good question. And one of the things that we're doing, so the answer is I don't know. And so we're actually having a conference later this year, where that is actually the central question: is like what is the true agenda
Okay.
for the Caribbean American community?
Okay.
So I'll get back to you on the answer to that.
All right.
Fair enough. Um, I believe this is the same event. The
Same event.
individuals with me are on, well, my far right, Horace Davis, who is the president of the Caribbean American Society um, of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle is actually a graduate student who had just finished, I don't remember if it's a master's or her PhD, but
Mm-hmm.
um, she was doing some research, and we helped her in terms of her getting her thesis and collecting her data.
Okay.
Um, so yeah,
Oh, and this is the same.
yeah, that's just me looking
All
good, man.
right.
All
So
right,
this
me
is
still looking good.
yes, you are.
Yes, I know I have to say it as often as you can. You know, you don't seem to want to say it, so I'm going to say it for myself.
No, well, I cannot deny. I cannot deny that. And so the slogan, is this the slogan or the progress
Yes,
to
yes.
partners?
This is So yeah, you see, this is Horace's background. His
Mm-hmm.
what do they call those things? Backdrop or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Step and repeat. That's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that's his Caribbean American Society of New York.
Progress to
Um,
partners. Okay.
yes, Progress through Partnership, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
is his
Oh,
slogan.
partnership. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it's
It's
cut
cut off.
off, so you're not
Yeah.
seeing the whole thing.
Okay.
Yes, and with me there was Dr. Webster, who works with us at the center, one of your countrywomen.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
she's
okay.
an educator and a linguist.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. So we're representing.
all right, let's see.
And
Um, this is one of our speaking engagements, part of our lecture series. If I remember correctly, this one is Council Member Mercedes Narcisse, and she's actually speaking um, about community health and community health issues affecting the Caribbean American community here in New York.
mm-hmm.
Yep, and so there she is, lined up with me. On the far left is Dr. Maria de Longoria, uh,
Mm-hmm.
who you're supposed to do an follow-up interview with.
Yes. Yes.
She's now moving on to be the associate provost at Queens College, one of our
Mm-hmm.
larger colleges. Ambassador Eugene Pursue, who is one of my full-time um, staff members at the center. He's a former ambassador um, to the United Nations for Grenada. Receiving the award is the council member who I mentioned a minute ago,
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes Narcisse, and I believe I'm blocking the provost
Okay.
invitation.
So, Doc, you still have it in mind to apply for your diplomatic status?
And
You
I
certainly
would
have
love
enough
to.
time.
I would love to. Hopefully, at some point in time,
And then you
they'll
can just
see fit to
put
name
me
me
on your
ambassador.
filing so I can benefit from the immunity.
Absolutely, man. We work it out.
Yes. All right. And who is this?
So I mentioned that I have former students who are now faculty members. So this
Mm-hmm.
is Dr. Noire Burke. I'm sorry, not Doctor, Professor Noire Burke, uh, who has joined us here. He's actually one of those adjuncts that I've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also teaches in public school. He's lately gotten into making documentaries, and has actually had quite a bit of success. So he's done some documentaries about tracing his ancestry back to West Africa, and
Oh.
a couple of other projects that I know he's working on. I believe he's doing one on African American or Afro Caribbean names, and the the connection between a lot of the names that we consider to be um, urban names, and actually
Mm-hmm.
showing that they're really just the attempts of a people who've lost this connection to their
Oh,
true
interesting.
history.
To reconnect.
Best to reconnect, so to try to mimic the sounds, but without the knowledge to
Oh,
necessarily. It's an interesting
so
thesis, though.
maybe the Shakwan and the
You're
Shankan
right, exactly. That's exactly what he's
that are
talking about.
considered to be ghetto names.
Right, that it's really just
Yeah, could be.
this attempt to connect with the ancestry.
Okay.
This is an event. This is the so with me is, and one of the ladies, I don't know her name, so I apologize for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Miss Bernie Calendar, who is also from Montserrat and who is the coordinator for the Caribbean American Heritage Month celebrations. That
Mm-hmm.
was a mouthful. Um, for the Human Resource Administration. So to put that in context, the Human Resource Administration is the very large office that oversees all welfare cases, all public assistance, all of that stuff. And so their entire staff have an annual celebration
Mm-hmm.
of Caribbean American heritage. And so I was the keynote speaker there. Um, so that's just a picture
So do
taken.
they have like when they having these functions, do they have like Caribbean samples of Caribbean meals or foods
Oh
that
yeah,
are
yeah, yeah. So the entire menu was all Caribbean food. The entertainment was all
Caribbean?
Caribbean people. There was a Nancy story getting told, all of
Oh,
that
that
stuff.
sounds good.
All kinds of fascinating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, that's just the flyer for that other
That
event that I think
event.
I'd sent you.
Okay.
And I don't know what that last one
And
is. That's
you were
coming.
the guest speaker. Um,
I was one of
one
the
of.
guest speakers alongside Dr. Julius Garvey,
Oh
who's
yes, and
also
we're going to
who
see
also spoke.
those. Yeah.
That's me hanging out in the White House, and
Yeah.
the people them architecture.
What was the event? What was the
This was
mission?
a event we were invited to by the. It was a gathering of Caribbean American leaders from
Mm-hmm.
around the country, who were invited by Vice President Harris. So I believe this particular thing, is at the reception that she held
Mm-hmm.
at the White House
Okay.
for us.
Right. And
Yeah,
that's you
also the
again,
White
same
House. Yeah,
place.
you notice I'm wet in this picture because it was
Right.
pouring. So my poor suit looks horrible.
Huh?
I said the poor suit.
Oh, why you say that?
Well, it's all wet and discolored there, you know.
Oh,
But anyway, nothing a little dry cleaning won't
and this is
This is
Organization of
outside of the
American
Organization of
States.
yes
American
of
States.
American States.
Okay.
See all the flags in the
At
back.
first, I was going to ask if it's at the UN, and then I
No,
said,
no, no, no. The UN flag display is a little different.
okay, so that's you
Also
again with
Norway.
the.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I've already covered who these are. This is all at the same graduation.
So Haitian
This is
Flag
the
Day.
Asian Flag Day. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I think that says it all. This was a great
So this is
event.
an annual event.
This is an annual event, and this particular one was being hosted by. We have an unprecedented number of Haitian Americans in city council this year, so they all came together to sponsor this one, and I'm holding a great book there that they were giving out,
Yeah.
which is keywords, a glossary of keywords in Haitian Creole, which
I
I thought
noticed
was
the
interesting.
spelling of this celebration. Is that Creole?
Yes,
Okay. All right. So that's you again.
yeah, I think these are my
You're
daughter.
standing like a soldier here, though.
Yeah, I guess somebody was saying something interesting.
Okay.
Um,
So this
this
is Mr. Garvey.
that is correct, actually. That is actually. Dr. Julius Garvey, who also did one of the lectures, as I mentioned, that we have. And let's see, standing with me, well, we already covered Horace, Dr. De Longoria. The lady in the gold is actually the new president here at Medgar College, followed by the provost, who is my direct supervisor. And on the far right, Mr. Ray Allen, who is a member of the Caribbean Research Center's advisory board.
Okay. So, do you find that Dr. Garvey is, I know in a sense he's carrying out his father's work, but in dialogue with him, do you think he has that passion and that
Oh, very much so.
vision that his
Yeah,
dad had?
very much so.
Okay.
I don't think you can, say too much about
Okay.
his commitment to the cause.
All right. You do a lot of speaking, I imagine.
Um,
Is it
I
is
guess
it
my
a
fair
case where
share.
you
You're
write your
calling me a chatterbox?
speeches? Hmm.
I said you're calling me a chatterbox.
I'm just going by the pics, see,
Well,
and with
I
all
do
those
spend,
hats you wear.
yes, I spend a fair amount of time in front of a
You tend to
microphone.
speak extemporaneously. Do you prepare your speeches? You
Um,
just wing it.
so I spent a lot of time doing debating. So I'm capable of speaking without
Okay.
a prepared script, but as we age more and more, I find having notes increasingly helpful.
All right. So these are pretty much the same.
Um, yeah, these might all be the
Yeah.
same event.
All right.
Um,
So
this is in New
it's
well, I was about
Walker.
to say New York State. This is in Albany.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there is an annual meeting of the Black and Hispanic. The acronym has become longer, but in essence, the Black and Hispanic Caucus.
Mm-hmm.
So leaders from the African American community, the broader Black community and Hispanic community, we all assemble in Albany, the capital of New York,
Mm-hmm.
for an opportunity to engage with elected officials and others. Sort of a mini conference, a 3 to 4 day conference. And so, yes, so that's that event.
Okay. This is Dr. Garvey again.
Uh,
And all right, so this is the that's the logo, Caribbean Research Center.
yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. That's
Yeah,
actually
I
a
was
new
wondering,
logo.
it's just that I was wondering, I don't know if you would what's the significance of the colors?
So, oh, those are the college's colors, so black and gold.
Black and gold. Okay.
The college's colors, and
All right.
we've this is actually a new graphic for us.
That's my favorite color combination, black,
Is
gold,
it
and
really?
white.
I'm not surprised.
Black, gold, and white is my favorite combination.
Ah, all right.
Whose books are these? What books are
So this is a sampling of some of our publications at the
uh-huh.
center. So
Okay.
I didn't mention, but we are the only center in the City University of New York that has its own publishing house. We publish quite a bit of material about the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
including our own referee journal,
Mm-hmm.
and various other pieces. Let me see what's represented
Put in
here.
a word for me. I need them to publish my Marcus Garvey workbooks for me.
All right, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Put in
Um,
a word for me.
yep.
Oh, and this is Doc in a reflective mood. What are you thinking
I
about?
have no idea. I can't even remember where I am in
You
this
know
one.
what you're
So
doing? You're scrolling through your phone. That's what you're
I
doing.
think so. I think so.
All right, and
um,
these are your graduates.
this is another graduation. This is actually last year, and that young lady right there has a very bright future ahead of her. She is so here's an interesting piece for you. She's in this picture, she is graduating both from high school and college at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
So she's graduating, she's collecting her associate's degree here.
Uh-huh.
And I think the following week she will get her high school diploma.
Oh my.
If that makes any kind of sense. Like one
It
day
does. And this
we'll
is my kind of thing. I love this kind of thing.
yeah. So if you
This is
actually
what,
look at a lot of the faces of those
yeah.
students coming down, if you look really close, you realize those are pretty young people.
Mm-hmm.
Many of those are actually in the same boat as she is.
Mm-hmm.
She's also quite an accomplished uh, performing artist. She dances.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, this that young lady we will see more of in the future.
Oh, absolutely. This is my kind of thing, you know. I get all riled up for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, Now I'm going to get in trouble for forgetting Earl's last name. All right. So this is again that same graduation ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the keynote speakers who has just received an honorary um, doctorate, and I was honored to be tasked with pinning and cloaking the honorees.
Mm-hmm.
With me there is the president, and on the far right is another superstar, um, Dr. Adero Green, um, and she's a faculty member here, but also the daughter of one of Brooklyn's best known community activists, um, Dr. Richard Green.
Oh, okay. I want to ask you, Doc, your personal opinion. I have it's kind of a pet peeve with me.
Okay.
um, how do you feel about this honorary doctorate thing? And
It, de-
how
it
how
depends
how
on what you get it
decided?
for.
Hmm?
It depends on what you got it for. Um, so yeah, there are people who receive honorary doctorates because they've done, um, and sometimes their achievements are equal in weight to any academic career you could have. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
you're um, a community activist who has really contributed to the development um,
Mm-hmm.
of a
Yes.
community and
Some I can
working in
understand. Yeah.
grassroots ish, and
Mm-hmm.
so you bring a level of knowledge and understanding that no textbook could no
Mm-hmm. I
textbook could
understand. Yes,
match.
some case. But when an athlete, a track and field athlete, is given an honorary doctor,
It
an
depends on how much money they also contributed.
so, oh, I'm peeved. I'm peeved. You
um
know.
yeah, it varies in terms of how you respond to it.
Yes.
The idea has always been though that you're supposed to have it's not just that you're famous, but that you've actually made some kind of contribution.
Contribution, solid
um,
contribution.
yes.
So here you are leading is this your faculty? Yeah,
Yes, they're not my faculty,
but they're
but
faculty
yes,
members.
yes, but these are all faculty members
Okay.
processing
All
knowledge.
right. And
This
I
is
think
a
this is the
young
last
superstar.
one.
This is the last one. Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Um, so this is Miss Monique Chandler Waterman, who
Hmm.
is a true rising star in the political arena.
Okay.
Um, I believe she's Jamaican as well. I don't remember her.
Yeah, we're making
Yes,
we're
she is actually.
representing, you know. We're definitely representing.
Yeah, she is Jamaican American, but this is her first. She's wrapping up her first term in office now.
Hmm.
Has been involved in community. activism and community development for a while. So she's a real powerhouse, and I think we're going to see a lot more from her.
Okay.
All right, that was fun.
Yeah, it was. It was. It was. It was. Um, Doc, I know you as a family man, and I want you to drop a few words about your kids because it
Oh
would
well,
not be complete without.
oh, thank you. So I am the proud father of five. Um, I started late, I guess. So my eldest is 18 and is heading off to college
Mm-hmm.
now. Um, my youngest is 8 and is the most charming young man you'll ever meet in your
Mm-hmm.
life. They've all just made me proud in all the things that they've done. They've done well in school. None of them has really presented with any major problems or challenges. They're all athletes.
Mm-hmm.
The It's too long a list to go through, but
Yes, I know because I've
cross country and track and field
yeah,
mostly.
I followed their every move. You may not know it, but
Yeah.
I followed.
Oh well, thank
Are
you.
you heavily involved in their athletics?
No, not anymore. No.
Well, you used to be. You used to
Yeah.
train.
Well, I did had my own
Mm-hmm.
um athletic track, I guess you can call it. So I coached for a while, but I
Mm-hmm.
never coached them directly.
Oh,
Not as their official coach. I would obviously
okay.
take them for runs and workouts and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I don't think coaching your own child is a good idea.
Same as it's not a good idea to teach your wife to drive.
Right, exactly. Not if you want the relationship to last.
Okay, so for those youngsters who are, they have ideas of becoming a professor, getting their PhD, going into the classroom, teaching, what words of advice, what words of warning, what words of caution you can give to them?
I'll start with the caution. It's not necessarily the most lucrative field to go into.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're doing it for money, then you should, you know, um,
At least have a back.
probably aim elsewhere. Right. Number two, also a word of caution is, um, the number of positions is finite, and
Mm-hmm.
it's limited. We started, earlier on, we talked about the number of faculty who are out there freelancing and
Mm-hmm.
working as adjuncts. And the reason is because, you have a university, the number of faculty that they're actually going to hire as full-time faculty is very
It's
finite.
limited, yeah.
It's very limited. And so if you're going into this field, don't go in with this expectation that, okay, I finished my degree, I'm going to necessarily walk into a
Mm-hmm.
job. A lot of people have been frustrated by that expectation. Um, if you really like teaching, if there's something you really want to study, you want to get your PhD,
Yeah.
sure, go for it. Right? Do it for the love of knowledge. Do it for the love of the field. And in terms of feeding yourself,
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you have applicable skills.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of us out here who have PhDs who are not in academia. Right? That we find that we actually make our living elsewhere, in other fields.
What are the options otherwise? I know writing
Well, it
books.
depends. It depends on what your area of
Yeah.
specialization is, right?
Consultation.
Consultation, yes. Believe it or not, corporate America hires a lot of us to help with different issues. And again, it depends on what your field is, right? Not
Is, yeah.
everybody is necessarily in political science and history.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a PhD in artificial intelligence, don't hold out for the university job, right?
Mm. Yeah,
Head on
yeah,
down
yeah.
to Silicon Valley and go get
I
paid.
mean, Doc,
Um,
you have what, 4 degrees? Am I correct? Four
yeah,
degrees?
yeah, yeah.
Is this the norm at this level? Would a young person who has the vision of one day becoming a professor, would you have to be thinking along those lines of getting X number of bachelor's degrees, X number of master's degrees?
There's no
There's
real
no hard and
hard
fast.
and fast rule. There's no number, right?
Mm.
I have four just because my path was an
Was,
interesting
yeah.
and varied path. Um, and at the same time, like, I know people who have two PhDs and three, right?
Mm.
So there's no real rule to it.
Mm.
For I guess my the biggest advice I could give, or the best advice I could give in terms of being successful, is publish early.
Mm.
Get your credentials in early. And when I say credentials, not just your actual degree, but get publications out there, get speaking engagements out there. And the reason I'm saying that is, we talked earlier a little bit about rank. Um, if you're going to come into this field, come into this field at a rank where you can get paid and command some
Yeah.
respect and so on, right? Um, and at the end of the day, getting publications out there is the fastest and surest way to do that.
Yeah, you took those words from my mouth. I was just about to say, at the end of the day, what excites you most about your job when all is said and done? What's the most exciting thing for you?
A couple, I guess. I like the exchange of ideas,
Yeah.
right? I love a good debate, a good conversation. I love to hear people um, take a question and go at it and
Mm-hmm.
get to its very core from all of its angles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I think the second thing is student success,
Yes.
right? And I think this is true, I guess, for all educators on all levels.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, seeing students come out and and running into them years later or whatever it is, or
Mm-hmm. And
you know
seeing their progress.
turning on the TV one
Yeah.
day and like,
And
oh,
see
and seeing how far they've gone,
they've gone.
um,
Yes.
and what they've done with it, hearing those testimonials about
I know you had mentioned that it's very important to you that you leave a legacy behind, that you can be proud of. I know, for
mm,
example, you're very proud of your dad for the legacy he has left behind.
right.
And yeah, so talk about that. What kind of legacy do you think you are um, leaving behind when ultimately you do, we all go. When we all go, we want
Nice.
to know we leave.
Very simply,
Mm.
whatever body of material I publish and produce and leave, A, um, B, my students, right, and whatever they become, right? They're at the end of the day the real legacy, right? Is years from now when I'm gone and someone says, I was well, it happens every now and then where someone
Mm.
says, I came to this point, and the reason I came to this point is because I met this oddball professor a few years ago. I think those are actually, in terms of being proud of what I've done, those moments are truly, those are
Yeah.
it, you
Mm-hmm.
know when someone gets up to a podium or wherever and or runs into me and says, you don't remember me, and I go, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, I remember you.
But you were the reason why, or one of the reasons why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's my B, and the last one is my kids. You know, if like whatever it is that they do, and that they
Mm-hmm.
turn out to be some half decent human beings who can also leave their own footprint.
Mm.
And that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you had said one of the common misconceptions, about being in academia, being a professor, is that people tend to think it's a very high paying job.
Yeah.
Is there any
Yeah.
other misconception you think people have, as it regards this kind of work?
Um, I don't think people appreciate the level of freedom that comes um, with being a full-time faculty member.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just control. So when, as I said, my path getting here was not the normal path. But I think one of the hardest things, or maybe hard is not the word, but well, one of the things that it took me a while to adjust to, um,
Mm-hmm.
when I did become a full-time faculty member, is not having a report time or an end time, or
Yes.
um, after about 3 months being on the job, somebody said to me like, "You actually come to work on Fridays." um,
You've earned it. You've paid your
you
dues,
know,
and you've paid your
um,
dues.
yeah, the flexibility in terms of what I can publish. So
Yeah.
um, I, I'm in political science, yes, but if I decided I wanted to go write a novel, a romance novel, and publish it, would I get credit for it?
Mm.
Yes. Um, the flexibility to teach what I want to teach. That if I decided that, you know tomorrow or next semester I'm teaching a class on, you know the politics of women in, in education in
Yeah, please
Jamaica,
do.
I
Please
could.
do. Because
Um,
I'm really interested.
yeah, no, no, no. I mean, the level of freedom,
Yeah.
flexibility. I think that's probably the thing that is probably most shocking to, or the
Hmm.
thing that people understand the least. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, my final question, Doc, is this. There is a trend now in people feeling that academia has lost its value. It's going to college is not necessarily a good thing. I mean, just this morning I saw a video pop up on the same issue, and I guess it stems from the fact that so many of our so-called modern icons have declared that, hey, I dropped out of college, and just on that surface level, people make that assessment without thinking of, okay, these particular persons, first of all, which college did they drop out of? To be able to drop out of that college, you would have had to have certain background and resources and support. People don't think about those things, right? And then the fact that, most persons who go to college, they tend to take student loans, which is a crisis unto itself. So for these reasons, the narrative is out there now floating around that, hey, you don't need to go to college. How do you feel about that?
I think that's one of it's, you're right. You hear it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always take it on when I hear it. But I think it's a misconception, one of the biggest ones out there.
Yeah.
First of all, I'll start with what you pointed out. So rather than looking at the anomaly,
Mm-hmm.
um, what I say to people is, don't look at the anomaly, look at the norm.
At the
Right.
norm. And especially look at your norm.
Exactly. Right. And so the anomaly is that, yes, you have this person who dropped out of Princeton and
And
started a
Harvard
startup
and
company,
MIT
and
and
now there, yes, and I was at MIT and I dropped out
dropped
and now
out.
I'm a millionaire, and absolutely. You're absolutely right. Like, if you're assuming that your life is going to follow that person's
You know
trajectory.
what? I saw a meme once, you see, and they were talking about, okay, so this, did you know that such and such a person started this company from their
Basement.
garage, and this
Yes.
person started that company from their garage, and this
Right.
person, so somebody writes under the bottom, but what
Do
if
you
I
have a
don't have a
garage?
garage? Yeah,
That's right.
suppose me not have a garage, what may I go do? And the typical person would fall into that category. They don't have those kind of resources and supports.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, and getting back to, so when you look at the norm, when you look at the mean, when you know you look at the data overall, um, college is still the best predictor of whether or not you're going to have
of success
success and
and
stability
standard of living. Yeah.
and your standard of living, all that stuff, right? So if you had to gamble on it, if you had to take a shot, yeah, you're better off taking the shot
Take a
of,
shot with a
I'm
degree.
going to go to I'm going to go with the degree.
Yeah.
Even if you're still trying your startup on the side, and I'm never going to tell anybody not to do their
Yeah.
startup. Um, so yeah, so that's number one. Number two, because the other side of it that I hear, and as you probably know, I used to work in a vocational school as well, right? High school. Um, and I would hear the same arguments there, right? Like, I don't need to know global studies. I don't need to study that. Like, just teach me my trade and send
Yeah.
me
And the student
along my
will
way.
think, yeah.
And the conversation I would have there as well is that, um, or you hear people say like, why do I need to learn this? I know you're into math. Like, why do I need to, learn how to find a derivative? I'm never going to use a
Yes,
derivative in my
yes.
life.
It's
And
so
the point is not,
pedestrian.
the point is you missed the
Pedestrian.
whole thing. You
Yeah.
missed the whole point,
You're
right? The
missing the
point
whole
is,
point.
the point is not the derivative. The point is not that stuff. The point is the other skills that you develop,
This exactly.
right, in the process of learning these skills or engaging this material or
Absolutely.
reading, whatever. Um, and I guess that is harder for a lot of people to appreciate, is the ability to self-instruct,
To collaborate,
the ability to
to
collaborate,
analyze.
the soft skills, the ability to analyze stuff, to synthesize stuff, to, like there's all of this stuff, to even just present yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you may have the greatest idea in the world, if you
But to
can't
put it down,
present it,
put
if you
it
can't
down on
write
paper.
it out into a report, if you
Yeah.
can't write it out
Listen.
into a proposal, if you can't put together the graphics to demonstrate it, if you don't have all of those skills, then again, you're not going to be that anomaly,
Right.
right? Those people who are those anomalies, what they didn't tell you is that they already had the skill set,
Exactly. That's
right?
why
So
I'm saying which school you drop out of make a difference.
absolutely, right. The truth is, when you talk about students at MIT not going there to learn very much, like, they already know
They
quite a
already know
bit.
a ton to
They're
get
going there
in.
to fine tune and to make connections and so
Right. The
on.
networking.
So there's so much stuff that I think people miss. And one of the key things that I think people lose out on if they decide not to do the college is the critical thinking, right?
Absolutely.
Um, even the critical thinking to not ask that question that you just asked.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so I'm still a firm believer in higher education. And higher education does not, necessarily. Here's one of the things that might be true, and I shouldn't say this as a coordinator of political science. It does. I think people should give more consideration to what it is that they go out to study, right? So if you're trying to truly transform your life and your family's life and your whatever, do I think you should go and spend a bunch of money on a degree in art history? Well,
Yeah,
unless your goal is to go work in a museum, then I would
exactly.
suggest that
Right.
you choose a more practical um, field to go and major in, and take your art history classes as your electives,
Mm-hmm.
right? As your enrichment courses. But overall, as I said, like I think higher education is still your
Your
safest
best
bet
bets. Yeah.
if you play your cards right.
Yeah. Okay, Doc. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about. Do you
Anytime, man.
have?
Just tell me
Do,
when you're ready. I know
oh,
I know we had a hard time connecting
yeah.
uh,
It's
these
it's
days,
like that. Yeah.
but we will
Do you have
anytime you're ready.
anything that you'd want to add for this session?
No, just that you're awesome. And
Ah, well,
keep doing the stuff that you're doing. Keep
thank
creating
you.
your content. Keep pushing. And you have a fan over here somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
No, I
um,
meant I am the fan, not that other fan.
okay.
All right.
I absolutely would like us to have another session. I'm going to put together another set of questions,
All right.
and you'll get to present some more awesome picks.
All
For
right. I'll take some time and put some together for you.
All right, Doc. Thank you for being a part of the program. Thank you for your time.
Anytime.
And I look forward to speaking to you again.
All right. Take care.
All right.